all want to provide answers. I have that same problem with journalists. I just did an interview earlier today, and that you always want to give them the answer, even if you don't know it. And we all want to do that, and it's extremely hard to step back and say, you know what, it's a good question, but I haven't thought about it, or you know, let's think about how to answer it. And I think we need to worry far less about content. That's the other thing. When I started teaching at a university, well, high school teachers assume kids learn nothing in primary school and then have to start from scratch. University professors assume that kids have learned nothing in high school and have to start from scratch. It's a first approximation, it's true in both cases. And the point is, it doesn't really matter. The information isn't important, because as a professional, as a scientist, most of what I know I've learned after my PhD. But I imagine it's true in almost every area of human activity that the actual information content is not as important as learning how to access it. And now, as we talked about with Google and other things, that knowing the first 4 presidents is as important as knowing how to find out who the first 4 presidents were, and how to find it appropriately, and who to trust and not trust.
That's really key, isn't it? How to trust it, who to trust and not.
I just did a thing with a friend of mine, a filmmaker, Werner Herzog, who was doing a thing on the internet, and it seems to me the big challenge for education in the 21st century is to learn how to filter, because the filters aren't there. When I was growing up, the filters were, even in the news, there were just 3 TV stations, and you got all your news. Remember that? Yeah. And you got all your news from Walter Cronkite or whoever it was, and it was all filtered for you and censored in that sense. But now there's no filter, so that's good because you access information, but you can't tell the information from the garbage. And so teaching kids how to filter is probably much more important than imparting information, because most of the information they're going to get is not the information they learned at school.
I mean, how do you answer people who say, Professor Krauss, you've got to be kidding me? There must be some basic minimums that people need to know in order to do those things.
Well, usually I'm kidding them, so that's the problem.
Usually you are kidding.
But
how do we decide
no,
on
I think there's no doubt that there's certain minimal requirements that you have to meet for education. You have to learn how to read, and you have to be able to do some math. And that's the basis for being able to access the world around you. But beyond, and so I'm not saying there should be no curriculum. We have to teach kids how to do some basic, and they have to have some basic perspective on the culture they're arrived in, history, and that sort of thing. So I think that it's important for schools to give kids a cultural perspective, and by culture I mean reading, science, math, as well as history, because science and math are part of our culture. But beyond that, I think there's very little that's necessary other than teaching the tools for how to be skeptical, how to access information, and how to take a problem you can't solve and turn it into a problem you might be able to solve, because that's really what the rest of life in any area that I can think of adult human activity is all about.